Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ian Gavin, Director at Amazon Web Services UK and Ireland.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the Excel Centre this morning. I just wanted to give my heartfelt thanks for the journeys that you've taken this morning. We all appreciate the challenges with the tube system over the last couple of days. So it's great to see you all here, and I hope you're going to have a great day with us. We've got an exciting event for you. One of the reasons why we have to be at the Excel Centre these days is there are over 2,000 people here today. We used to run these in central London, but unfortunately we can't find buildings big enough to house everybody, so we have to come out towards the Excel Centre. So this is our first time here. It's been a great day. Yesterday we had 1,000 people here at an enterprise summit, a lot of business owners in the building. It was a fantastic event as well, so it's nice to see you all here. So today is going to be broken into really two parts. This morning we're going to be in this room, and then this afternoon we're going to be upstairs on the third floor in various breakout technical sessions. So there's going to be 18 breakout sessions with various members of staff from AWS and also customer speaking. There's also 39 of our ecosystem from our partner ecosystem actually in the hallway. If you haven't been in there today to grab a coffee, they're exhibiting across the hallway, and we'd encourage you to go and see them. And there's going to be an interesting chance for you to win a Kindle Fire HDX as well. There's actually, you may have seen them, they're locked in a little glass box at the moment, and you'll be able to pick up some codes a little bit later and try and see if you can actually unlock one of those Kindles. So kind of exciting competition for you to engage in. We've also got 12 customer speakers today. 3 of them are actually going to be on the stage with Steve Schmidt this morning in here, and the rest are going to be throughout the breakout sessions this afternoon. So we love having our customers speak at these events. It really gives you an insight into what people are doing on a day-to-day basis, and you get an opportunity to ask them questions. I know when I've talked to the speakers, they love wandering around, just grab them and ask them some questions that are on your mind. They love answering those questions on your behalf. So, you know, we've just celebrated our 8th birthday. We launched in March 2006. It's been a heck of a journey. And you get an idea of what people are using AWS for throughout the day. So, and there's a lot of experience that you can actually take hold of and use on your journey into the AWS cloud. We realize that a lot of the people here today have not or are not using AWS. So we're going to give you a little bit of an insight into what the platform can offer you and what some people are doing with it. So to help you on that journey, there are a number of staff around here today. You'll notice they're in dark polo shirts or long sleeve shirts with an Amazon Web Services logo. And those people are basically from our solution architecture team, our account management team. We've got people in from support. So the enterprise support team are in, the professional services team, and also training certification. So if you want to talk about a particular topic, please grab a member of staff in the hallway or in the expo and just say, look, I'd like to talk to you about a topic. And if they're not the right person, they'll find you the right person in the building to go talk to. So please go grab one of our specialists here today. Now, obviously with these big events, when we run them, we like to bring in a number of our partners. Our partners bring a lot of value to our ecosystem, helping with consulting, system integration, and also with tooling as well. And you'll see a great selection of them in next door. I'd like to sort of thank the sponsors for this event. Intel's been incredibly supportive of us over the years, and they've been really helpful in getting this event. You've seen they're in the Partner Expo, and they're actually helping us not only with our own technology, but also the outreach to people like yourself. Also, HCL have been very helpful. They help our customers with system integration work, and they're also in the Partner Expo. And we've got a number of silver sponsors, ranging from system integrators and ISVs, and also some bronze sponsors. So there's 39 sponsors here today out of hundreds within the ecosystem. So we've got a range of people that can help you with strategy, design, build, run, tooling, testing tools, configuration management tools, content management. So It's a real good selection, and you should be able to help you pick and choose the tools that you need to help you with your journey to the cloud. So what does today look like? Well, I'm going to call Steve Schmidt up in a moment to give a keynote presentation. And in that presentation, he's going to give you basically where AWS today. There's a lot of innovation. And a lot of our day-to-day work within the business in the UK is talking to customers about some of the new features that we actually launched. And Steve will give you an insight into how that innovation has evolved over the years and what we've actually done so far this year. And people, you're very busy, and sometimes don't get an opportunity to really catch up on those new innovations and what that means. You know, we're running demonstrations, for example, of workspaces on the booth, the Amazon Web Services booth, Kinesis, for example, CloudTrail. There's a number of new services that you may be interested in just trying to figure out what it is and what it does. So Steve will give you an insight into the platform. And it's our privilege to welcome 3 customers on the platform with Steve as well throughout the morning to talk about their use cases. So we've got Just Eat, SwiftKey, and Channel 4 supporting Steve this morning. So that's going to be great in this room. Then we're going to break out at lunchtime, and we're going to go next door in the Partner Expo. While you're in here, there's an army of people next door quickly reconfiguring the room to kind of have lunch and teas and coffees out there. So when you go out there at lunchtime, we'll have lunch set up for you. You can actually engage in the competition if you want, see if you can win that, or some of those Kindle Fire HDXs. And then basically this afternoon is a number of track sessions. We've got details of them out in the foyer so you can locate them. We're color coding them as well. If you're not too sure, grab a member of staff and they'll direct you to where the track is. And it's actually upstairs in this building on the 3rd floor, and they're in various different rooms. We will not be using this room this afternoon. And then we understand, because of the travel situation, some of you may need to rush off and get home. We totally understand that. But if you can and you want to, we will have a few cold beers and soft drinks this afternoon at 4:30, and you're very welcome to stay and have a chat, casual chat with us. If you've been to any of these events in the past, you'll know that that's a great way to network and to also catch up with some of the Amazonians as well. So that should give you a flavor. I wanted to give my heartfelt thanks for you to come out today. I know it's a big commitment. There's a little burden on the travel. We do appreciate that. We've been trying to work with the transport authorities to ensure that we can actually get people here. So, you know, we do thank you for your commitment coming out, and in return, we'll give you a great day. So it gives me great pleasure now to welcome onto stage Vice President of Amazon Web Services, Steve Schmidt.
Good morning, everyone. As Ian said, we've just celebrated our 8th birthday, which is a wonderful occasion for us, but more importantly, it's a wonderful time to celebrate our customers. And AWS is proud to have such an incredibly diverse customer base. More than 190 countries are represented with hundreds of thousands of customers. Our startup space is incredibly vibrant with people that I'm sure that you use, like Dropbox, Pinterest, Instagram, and Flipboard. And they're not all US-based. In fact, if you notice, Supercell and CCP Games from Europe are on the list as well. Shazam and Spotify, who are London-based organizations, are represented. Halo Cabs, which is a wonderful cab app, by the way, if you're having a hard time locating a cab right now during the tube strike. I'll use them as an example later on today, in fact, in the use of AWS. We have a number of large enterprise customers as well who've chosen to make significant investments in the AWS platform. You'll notice some locals on the screen there: News UK, Vodafone in the communication space, and Channel 4, who you'll hear from later on today. Public sector is well represented, of course, with more than 800 government agencies worldwide using our platform, and about 3,000 educational institutions using our services to help teach their students, as well as run their operations. We recognized a long time ago that without an ecosystem, we wouldn't be successful as a business. While many of our customers are interested in natively using our services, they have the staff on hand who've got the skills, the abilities to use things directly, some people like to work with system integrators. And so we've worked very hard to have a system integrator pool who is representative of those people that you like to use to help your business move forward. We've got global partners like Cognizant or Accenture, Capgemini or Infosys. with a large and growing number of partners right here in the UK, like Smart421, or Razorfish, or CloudReach. Now, no cloud operation would be complete without software. And there's a lot of software that we provide directly for customers. And our customers have given us a lot of feedback on the software that they want to use. You've chosen to use software like SAP, Oracle, or Adobe, maybe Autodesk or Symantec products in your on-premises environment. And you want to use those same pieces of software on AWS. So we've worked very hard with our partners to make that available, make that happen. There's also an interesting group of ISVs who were born in the cloud. If you look at Acquia, for example, in the CRM world, or Twilio for communications, maybe MongoDB for in-memory database space, or Heroku with their containers. And what's really an interesting viewpoint into how AWS operates in the market, if you take a look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant from 2013, Gartner has put us in that upper right-hand corner, that blue dot, and the rest of the providers in this space tend to be clustered around the center of that graph. And it's there for a reason. It's because of the breadth of our services, the broad global reach of our platform, but also the pace of innovation that we have in this space. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on today. Interesting quote from Gartner. They say that based on their analysis, AWS operates with more than 5 times the compute capacity than the other 14 providers combined. It gives you an idea of the scale differential. We're going through a shift and a transition right now in technology. Arguably, that's the largest one that's occurred in our lifetime. And it's happening at a pretty incredible pace. And I think we've seen a fundamental change in the way people are approaching the cloud. It used to be that people asked, well, what can I move to the cloud? And we're now in a different position. Companies are saying, tell me why this can't go into the cloud. Principally because of the improvements that have been made in the ability of people to move their workloads seamlessly into cloud environments, coupled with the broad breadth of services that we offer. And we are now truly moving into an era of mainstream adoption of the cloud. When you hear from customers later on today, they'll explain how very large, very established businesses are moving not only components of their business to the cloud, but also their entire business to the cloud. So why are people adopting AWS so rapidly? The number one reason is agility. Agility is a change in the ability to move rapidly in an environment. Why does agility matter? In this day and age, if you're slow and you can't innovate quickly, you are at a big competitive disadvantage. Take a look at the people on the screen here. In the cloud space, there are startups who've been able to disrupt their established business areas. I mean, look at Dropbox with storage, or Instagram with photos, Spotify with their music, or Airbnb in the hotel space. Tremendous changes to industry based on their ability to innovate rapidly. Enterprises can't afford to be slow either. Yet if you ask an engineering leader in many enterprises how long it takes to get a server, the typical answer is somewhere between 6 and 25 weeks. On average, it's probably somewhere in the 10 to 18-week range. That's maddening. The real problem with that is that your staff stop trying to invent. If it takes so long to get services, why bother? Anybody who does a lot of inventing will tell you that the 2 most important things about the process are in the cloud, you can spin up thousands of servers in minutes. But more importantly, not every opportunity pans out. You can give back servers that you don't use. So all of a sudden, you're in a world where you can afford to try new ideas. You can move teams from a learned helplessness, where they don't try things, they don't try and innovate, they don't try and move your business forward, to a world where they're now motivated to think of new ideas for customers because you can support their transitions well. Number 2 on the list is platform breadth. This is about the breadth of our services, the features within our services, and the geographic footprint that we have. If you want to build a new business from scratch or move some or all of your workloads to the cloud, you need a broad array of services and features to make that happen so that you don't have to piecemeal bits and pieces of your organizational move. It's useful to take a look at our services from a sort of stratification view. Down at the bottom are our regions and availability zones around the world. Regions are parts of the planet, geographies, into which you place your resources. Availability zones are representative of data centers within each of those regions. We have content delivery locations, of course, around the planet to support delivery with low latency to all of our customer base. One important point about the region is that unlike some providers who globally load balance your workloads with them, when you place your data in an AWS region, it stays in that region. Let me restate that. When you put your data in Europe, it stays in Europe. We don't move it absent your instruction to do so. Now, on top of that, of course, are the fundamental building blocks of our services. Compute, like EC2, load balancing and auto scaling. Without storage, compute wouldn't be terribly useful, so we've got object stores like Amazon S3, block stores that present virtual disk drives to your EC2 instances, like Elastic Block Store. And Storage Gateway, which helps you move information from your on-premises environment into the cloud. Moving higher up still, databases, of course, run on top of that compute platform. RDS is our relational database service that allows you to unload the heavy lifting of operating a database to us, and we take care of it for you. And on top of that, of course, is the network stack. These are the bits and pieces that connect all of your information back to us. Virtual private cloud, we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's your way to carve off a piece of our infrastructure and operate it yourself. And analytics further up the stack. EMR is our Hadoop implementation that allows you to do massive parallel processing of data. Redshift is our business analytics platform. And application services like CloudFront, our content delivery network, or notification services like SNS. All of these are components that are necessary to build functional applications. Think of the Halo application that you run on your smartphone to call a cab. It has back-end processing on EC2. It stores information in S3 and EBS. But when you press that button to say, get me a cab, there's the process of notifying the cabbie using SNS that there's a call waiting. And then he replies, and the queuing system then enters the information in transaction processing, saying, yes, move this forward. These are all parts of a holistic view of how you deliver applications to your customers. On top of that, we layer administration. IAM is our identity access management platform that allows you to either use identities that are unique to your AWS environment, or to link directly to your on-premises Active Directory infrastructure so you can drive AWS with your existing users. CloudTrail, which helps you understand how your users are using AWS. And of course, nothing would be complete without a management console that you can interact with to tell us what to do with your services. Now, some people don't want to construct all of that infrastructure themselves. They would prefer to write code that would be natively deployed onto an infrastructure. And that's the point of our containers and deployment layer, where you can write Ruby or PHP or Python and drop it directly into a container on AWS and have us execute it for you, managing all of that muck underneath. We talked earlier about our ecosystem. And without the technology partners and the marketplace to deliver software to you, our services would be incomplete. Marketplace is growing at an incredible rate. It's about a 95% growth rate with about 1,400 different versions of software available in it right now. And on top of that, we layer our people, our professional support, people who answer the phone when you have a question. Professional services is our staff who help you move into the cloud or work with your SI to help you move into AWS. Training, which I hope you all take advantage of today, of course upstairs. You'll see that this is something that we do regularly. A good example of the breadth of our approach are the instance types that are available on EC2. After 8 years, we've built quite a collection of instances where we move beyond just the general purpose utility computing into instance types that are application optimized. So for instance, the M1 instance type that's on the left side, that was our first general purpose instance type. It had a balance of CPU and memory. And customers came in and said, you know, I really want to have an instance type that's more focused on CPU because I've got a CPU intensive workload. So we added the CC1s. You said, I want to do cluster computing where the machines are physically located next to each other so I have the lowest possible bandwidth or latency between systems. We added the CC2s. You'll see this is a progression that occurs across our infrastructure when we add things like CG1, which are instances that have GPUs built into them so that you can do highly graphically intensive work. We don't rest on our laurels. This is a situation where we're continually innovating in this space. We spent a lot of time in the last year adding what we consider to be the next generation of instance families to EC2 for both general purpose workloads and application-specific instance types. The M3s, for instance, use high-frequency Intel Xeon E5 2670s, the Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge processor series, because that gives you more compute power for less money than the older instance types. We've moved to SSD-based storage for fast storage I/O performance on the new instance types. And we've added memory-optimized instances like the R3s. That's an 8-to-1 memory to CPU ratio with up to 244 gigs of RAM per instance. All of this, of course, backed by SSD storage. The R3s, by the way, are replacing the M2s and the CR1s for memory-intensive applications if you're a current user. And we've taken this variety of instance types and connected them to our world-class network. This is a network that was quite strong 8 years ago when we started AWS, but we've substantially invested in it and built it out over the last several years as we've grown explosively and become the largest cloud computing platform on the planet. It's a network designed to handle very high packet per second rates and high throughput, allowing you to build applications that have tremendous performance characteristics. So we support not only 1 or 2 regions around the world, but your ability to run in 10 different geographic locations, including our newest region in China, which is available in limited preview right now. So we have a platform that not only contains breadth of services, depth of features, but incredible geographic diversity as well. That allows you to get closer to your customers from a network basis, but also to meet your particular governance or regulatory requirements on data locality. We're going to use a couple customer examples here to give you a feeling of AWS. We'll start off with National Rail Inquiries. National Rail Inquiries, of course, is a private company owned by the train operating companies here in the UK. And they service an online population of about 1 million visits every workday. And their mobile apps have about 5 million downloads so far, I believe. They are using a number of our services together. These include their public-facing web content, of course, an interface that customers access when they visit the service, which you can see here. Using our Route 53 DNS service and EC2, of course, for compute, RDS for databases, they give them the capability to deal with large spikes in user traffic, which may be caused by bad weather or events like transit strikes. By building on top of AWS, they can build in flexibility to expand to meet those traffic loads, and then contract to reduce cost when they're not dealing with high traffic volumes. In addition to the public-facing elements of their service, there are a number of heavy usage applications that run on the back end. For example, the Journey Planner or their fare calculators. National Rail Inquiries uses a number of our services to deliver the different components of their apps in a reliable and cost-efficient manner. Let's talk about Financial Times. They're an organization that really needs no introduction, one of the world's leading business publications, about, 2.2 million users around the world right now. FT's been using AWS to run their business intelligence workloads, which have completely revolutionized the way that they offer content to customers, giving them the ability to personalize content for customers and give them a more tailored reading experience. That, of course, is built on a number of different features, like a custom Python-based ETL platform that collects data securely from third-party feeds, moves it to their existing on-premises databases, as well as feeding information in a secure fashion back to EC2. The ETL framework automatically scales up to deal with data input volume and is both event and schedule driven, so they can behave in a manner that's consistent with their requirements, both based on time of day, but also what's going on in the world. By going deep on their requirement for data feed management, the Financial Times are able to be more agile, as well as increase their performance dramatically. Their data is stored on Amazon S3 in encrypted form, and they keep it online for a set number of days, and then the data is moved into Amazon Glacier for long-term archival purposes and a significant cost reduction. If they need to recover their data at some point, they can load the retrospective look into a new environment or augment their existing reporting structure. The data in Amazon Redshift, by the way, is used by a variety of their different internal teams, such as subscription management, building and executing marketing campaigns, ad hoc reporting for specific events or other needs for their financial services organization. And they use reporting tools such as Burst as existing OLAP cubes hosted on their Microsoft Analysis Services and SharePoint environments. The ability to integrate with their existing analytics processes has made the adoption of AWS tools for analytics relatively painless, and most importantly, quick to implement for them. Now we're going to hear directly from a customer who's used AWS to rapidly scale their business. I'm delighted to welcome Carlos Morgado, the group CTO from Just Eat.
Thanks, Steve, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey that Just Eat has been on, particularly around how we use AWS, and hopefully bring to life some of the unique challenges that we face as a business. So, but before I go there, let me just briefly introduce Just Eat and who we are. So as a tech team, we're about 100 people, and we're growing. A few of us are wearing these polo shirts this morning, so please do reach out to us during the day. If what I'm about to share with you guys piques your interest, then do grab us after some of these events. If you want to find out in more detail about a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about, we have a parallel track session that's going to be led by our Director of Engineering, Dan Richardson, later this afternoon, so again, feel free to attend. Alternatively, check out our blog, whose URL is sitting there on the screen. But who are we as a company? Not all of you may know us. So we're an online takeaway marketplace. We operate in 13 countries. We have just over 36,000 restaurants in our network in those 13 countries. We were founded in 2001, and we've just IPO'd earlier this month. Interesting that actually we're older than AWS. That's spooky in a way. Anyway, so that's who we are. So let me get back to this sort of technical challenge, those issues that we face. So I think these words for me describe the technological challenge that we face. So we want to scale our business, we want to grow it, we want to change it rapidly by adding new features, continuously improving the consumer experience, the tool sets we use internally, and so on and so forth. And we do that as a technical team, both in terms of responding to business needs, business demands, but also participating in the sort of innovation process, creating opportunities, hackathons, and all of that sort of stuff is things that we really believe in. Now, you're probably sitting there and thinking, hang on a second, that doesn't really sound that different, that doesn't sound that unique. And you're right, these challenges are faced by a lot of companies, most of the companies out there in the world today. What makes us unique is a special aspect of what we do and the product we supply. We supply food, and this food must be supplied to the customer within 35, 45 minutes of ordering. So we're supplying a physical product in 35 to 45 minutes, and it's food. And food is something whose value is very interesting, has very interesting characteristic. So if the food arrives within the allotted time, with expected time, then I'm going to be a very happy consumer, a very happy customer. If it arrives a little bit too late, maybe 45, 50, 60 minutes, I'm probably going to reach into the fridge and get rid of the hunger that I'm feeling, which is a good segue into sort of the millennium of human evolution. When when I feel hungry, my brain or my stomach demands of my brain successful action. I must actually feed myself to get rid of that hunger. If I'm sitting at home in my cave around a fire with my family, and they say, actually, you've got to go and feed us. Actually, I don't go hunting. Obviously, I get out the Just Eat iPhone app, and I place an order. And if it's successful and it arrives on time, then my family is extremely happy. If it doesn't, then it's actually very likely that they're going to say, thanks, Dad, but no longer do we want to use this Just Eat service because we actually had to make do with some stuff in the back of the fridge. And that's the reality of the service we operate. It's a very emotional experience that people have around food, and if we don't give them a positive experience, an experience that they love, they're likely not to come back. So in that world, we have to continuously change the business, evolve it, create new opportunities, while all the time ensuring that we're creating a great experience that the consumers will love. So if that's the technical challenge, how have we sought to overcome it? Loads of stuff that I could talk about in terms of scaling and change, but I've chosen to focus on these areas today. So the first one is performance. So as a consumer and as an increasingly savvy consumer in the web space and the online space of today, I want a great, performant website, a performant app that I want to interact with. Now, if I look back in my career, and actually not too far in the distant past, I have, huge challenges around creating performance testing environments that appropriately mimic my production environment so that I can get confidence around how the performance of the software I'm changing will perform in a real-world environment. It was very expensive. It was very ineffective in recreating production. Now I can do it. I can do it pretty much with a press of a button. I could actually run a whole infrastructure, a whole copy of our infrastructure at a press of a button for a number of minutes, test it, see how it performs, and shut it down again. That's really interesting for me. And we do that, not complete infrastructure, but in focused ways. We run artificial load through our production environment. We run load that mimics a sort of projected capacity needs sort of for a number of months in the future. And this is very interesting because, it's actually, for us, it's cost-effective enough, but it does two things. First of all, it gives me confidence that my software architecture is capable of actually delivering capacity needs, X months ahead. But if there is a huge traffic spike because of some marketing explosion or whatever it might be that's unexpected, I can just switch off that extra artificial load, and I immediately have extra capacity in a very, very short space of time. As you can guess, Just Eat is a service that's very peaky in performance demands and capacity demands. Stomach gets hungry around 6 p.m. Everyone comes online, uses their iPhone app, their Android app, and starts to order. So we see very large spikes in load. And of course, auto-scaling is something that is very helpful to us to bring up capacity and to take it back down once people are no longer ordering so much later in the evening. And that sort of artificial load and auto-scaling are actually very complementary because, the auto-scaling gives me the capacity delivered by extra infrastructure, albeit virtual, and the artificial load gives me the confidence around my software architecture. But of course, all of this is great, but it must come at the right cost. And again, AWS is giving us a quite flexible approach to deal with the sort of cost effectiveness and scalability stroke performance. And the way we use both on demand for the flexibility, we use reserved instances to control some of the costs and because we're able to project into the future our capacity needs. And we use on-spot pricing as well because obviously there are always tasks, and typically there are always tasks that are not actually time critical, and we can wait for those to be carried out. So that's scaling for us. let me move over to change. I was interested to note that one of the video speakers earlier talked a little bit about this. So as the leader of the tech team in Just Eat, what I want our engineers to be doing is focusing on differentiation, focusing on those things that makes us different from the competition, excites our consumers to come to use our service rather than somebody else's. That excites our partners, that engages them with us as their partner. And that means that if I want to have a highly scalable, robust, secure queuing system, I could have a bunch of engineers building it today and maintaining it ad infinitum, or I could just pull SQS off the building block shelf from AWS and plug it into my platform. I've got that very system. And it will undoubtedly evolve. It has evolved, and it will get ever better. If I want to make sure that the latest driver on my NIC or my hardware that I've purchased is compatible with everything, I'm going to build a lab. I'm going to put a whole load of engineers in there, and I'm going to ask them to make sure that that latest driver with that hardware on that NIC is not going to cause me any problems in communicating with my database. These are real things that have happened to us and now no longer happen because I'm using an EC2 instance that, all of that stuff is taken care of by AWS and their engineers. It's really interesting for us. The other way of generating rapid change is by having teams that are autonomous, multiple teams that are autonomous, independent. And the way we do this is by compartmentalizing our platform, creating functional and non-functional contracts between each of the teams and saying, guys, you go ahead. You have the ability to use the AWS tool set. You have the ability to create your own infrastructure, use your own technology, and get to it. And that's been a very effective way of generating extra throughput in change. And the engagement from an engineering perspective of, I have authority, I own this, I feel pride, and therefore there's that top spin on top of that as well. Automation, there's a whole load of stuff that I could spend on, talk about on automation. It's just such an interesting topic. But I'll pick the one that is close to my heart, which is infrastructure as code. We truly do use code to create our infrastructure. And then we deploy an AMI to it, and then we deploy our app package on top of that. And the really interesting thing about this for us, the great value, is that the divergence between our various environments is actually very small, not the least of which because we actually kill environments very, very regularly. And that thereby, we ensure that we have confidence as we make change. We don't get into these situations that historically we've all been in, and I certainly have been in, where stuff is developed, it goes to test, it passes test, it goes to production, and bang, it has to be rolled back because it doesn't work. And on further investigation, we discover that it's because there was divergence between our production environment and other ones leading up to it in the life cycle. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And this is the evidence, I think. So on the left, you have a graph of peak orders per minute. And as you can see, it's a nice exponential growth. And AWS has certainly helped us, combined with us, to achieve that growth, ranging from early 08 sort of tens of orders per minute to nearly 1,000 per minute these days. And also on the functional change. So we have a world in 2009 where we're taking 3 months of a software release, and today we're making multiple software releases every single day. And I think that evidences that approach, that combination of our ethos, of our strategy, supported by and with collaboration from AWS has achieved what we set out to do. So that's it from me. Do reach out to us if any of that interests you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Number 3 on the list, continual iteration and innovation. AWS is incredibly focused on innovation, and it's something that we bring across our platform all the time. More importantly, as AWS grows, the pace of innovation increases as well. If you look at the chart, the graph, take a look at the slope of the line as it progresses to the right. This year, for example, you'll see 125 new features for the first quarter of 2014. That slope continues to go upwards. Why is that relevant to you as a customer? In the old world, when you had to build things and deploy them in your own offices, in your own data centers, you were responsible for all the work of upgrading. And typically, if you were lucky, you would get upgrades delivered to you once a quarter on a DVD or a CD. In AWS, we install this new functionality behind the scenes, and every customer has access to it immediately. If you choose to take advantage of the new functionality, it's available for you, but we don't force you to take it if you don't want. The difference there, of course, is the upgrades happen automatically and without work on your part. A nice illustrative example would be DynamoDB. DynamoDB was launched 2 years ago with the aim of helping customers build internet-scale applications quickly without the need for the heavy lifting associated with a highly available, high-performance database. Right out of the gate, DynamoDB provided very high levels of throughput, consistent, predictable I/O performance, regardless of how much data you put into it. But customers want more, so we add. Over the last 2 years, we've added significant new features, like global and secondary indices to provide you with better query flexibility, as well as item-level access control, which allows you to specify access policies on individual items of data inside a single table. So it's not just saying who can get to the database as a whole, but down to the individual components of data that are in a table. Along with these, we've added a lot of new tools and features. Of course, price reductions as well, which take DynamoDB to a generation beyond just a key value store. We've added new data access APIs like parallel scan and batched writes, and new code libraries for geospatial indexing, transactions, mobile and testing use cases, and data migration tools like cross-region copy, import, and export, and reducing, of course, both the storage and throughput costs. Amazon AppStream is a service that's relatively new. We announced it at reInvent last year. It's a really interesting way to get high-definition video directly to your customers. Now, of course, the interesting thing about delivering to customers is their viewing differs based on the device that they're on and the network that they're on. So as an application author, you have to constantly think about that trade-off of do I do some really incredible immersive graphics, or am I forced to deal with the relatively small processor that's sitting on their endpoint device? Or make the trade-off of there's a decent processor in the device, but I'm going to chew their battery up if I use it to its fullest extent. So what we gave customers was a way that they could do incredibly intensive graphics work and just display the pixels to the end customer. EVE Online is a massive multiplayer online game, 500,000 simultaneous users, and they wanted the ability to present an incredibly accurate 3D representation of characters to their customers as part of the immersive aspects of the game, far beyond the processing capabilities of the typical display device, which might be a tablet or a phone. By using our GPU-based instances, they could use that incredible graphics manipulation power of purpose-designed hardware to do the manipulations and only show the final pixels down to the customer, significantly reducing the workload on the customer's device and doing things they couldn't otherwise. True Golf is another example of the same kind of thing. In the golf simulation world, typically, you would have to buy a purpose-built piece of kit that might cost $10,000 and be installed in a golf professional's shop, whereas True Golf was able to find a very interesting way to use inexpensive sensor systems and feed that back to AWS using AppStream to deliver the final rendered graphics back to the customer. The net result is something that's accessible to many more people. They can use it in their own homes as opposed to being in a specific location, and do so in a fashion that is consistent with the very high quality display that TrueGolf wanted to have. Workspaces is the new service announced at reInvent last year that customers asked for the most. Now, most enterprises are used to the real headache of dealing with desktops. Desktop operation is painful from the hardware management standpoint, it's painful from the security standpoint, and it's painful from the operational performance standpoint. So customers said, can you please unload a lot of that work from us, find a way to make it easier and safer, more secure to run? So virtualization of desktops is not something that's new by itself, but in the old world of desktop virtualization, you would have to buy this big chunk of hardware that you would run in your data center. You'd have to find good network connectivity within your buildings to enable it. And you'd have to have your staff continually updating and maintaining the software that's present on those machines. But more importantly to many customers, there's a huge capital outlay involved with doing that, both in the kit itself as well as the licensing fees associated with the software, something that many businesses just did not have the wherewithal to do. Workspaces, on the other hand, is something that we manage, we provide and maintain, and is billed to you on a monthly basis. So you're freed from the shackles of those big upfront investments, as well as the headaches of the operation of the desktop virtualized environment. If you want to see Workspaces in action today, please look for our 2 floating demo units. AWS Solutions architects out there have Kindle Fire HDX tablets, and they're available to show you real live Workspaces if you're interested today. And I'm excited to announce that Workspaces is coming to the Ireland region within the next month. So you'll have a local version of it available here in Europe. Another announcement, AWS provides you with the platform to perform actionable social intelligence as well, such as understanding this real-time sentiments about your brands or products. These solutions enable organizations to manage your brand reputation or provide customer service that's really responsive. And we've just made this easier to run by providing access to GNIP's Twitter streaming feed within the AWS Marketplace. This means that you have access to more than 50 million tweets on Amazon Kinesis that you can use for your own internal purposes, for analyzing how you're performing for your customers, for example, for less than the price of a cup of tea a day. That's a pretty amazing place to be. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ian McDonald, the IT director for SwiftKey.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Ian McDonald from SwiftKey. SwiftKey, we're known for our smart apps. We've got the SwiftKey keyboard on Android. It's the #1 best-selling paid app on Google Play for 2013 and 2012. Over 30 million downloads so far, and a very high rating, 4.7 stars, which is very, very hard to get. It speaks to the quality of our software. And earlier this year, we've just launched Swift Keynote, our first software for the iPhone and the iPad. It reached the top 10 free app chart in the US. It had over 1 million downloads in the first month, and it was the editor's choice. So our mission is about bringing a more human experience to your devices. It adapts to you. It's transformational technology. We want to make it easy for everyone to create and communicate on mobile. Okay, let's roll the video.
Here at SwiftKey, we're always thinking about ways to stay at the bleeding edge of typing technology. We work tirelessly to make sure that our users have the best typing experience wherever they are. But we've realized that sometimes to get to the future, you have to go back to where it all started. FlowHard brings SwiftKey's incredible predictive text technology to your physical keyboard.
What people don't know is we actually started working on this a long way back, but the hardware at the time just wasn't up to the job, and it's taken until now for it to catch up.
Under the hood, we've crammed in SwiftKey's latest artificial intelligence technology to try and make sense of the nonsense you type.
I work with spreadsheets on a daily basis, and I find FlowHard extremely efficient for number crunching.
Now that's a bit of fun, but it illustrates the point, because that was actually real. We took the technology behind what we put in our smartphones, and then we shifted that up into AWS, running in the cloud. We did this on April Fool's Day, and it actually worked. And we'd have been too scared to do it without AWS, because people could go to a web page and they could start using that. And I actually found on my notebook it was actually quicker than me even typing. But without the flexibility of AWS, could you pull that off as a marketing stunt? We got hundreds of thousands of views of that, and it hit our servers, and we didn't know whether we're going to need 1 server or 100 servers, and that's exactly what AWS is perfect for. And there's another example here. Here's our scaling at Swift Keynote launch. Now, this is a graph of our personalization service. Personalization is on our device where you can securely transmit up your data from things like Facebook or Twitter in a manner that's semi-anonymized, and then it sends you back a language model to your device. The orange and the blue there are 2 other social sources of personalization data that had been running up until the Swift Keynote launch. And this was our first iOS app. We didn't know how it would go. We thought, oh, do okay, we'll get 10,000, 50,000 downloads during the first day. That wasn't what happened at all. As you saw, we got over 1 million downloads in the first month. And this grey part of the graph, that's our Evernote personalization. So you look at our number of servers that we have to have before that time, and then instantly we had to have that amount of service to the grey part, which was far more than our existing servers to serve up the Evernote load that was coming through as people were sending us Evernote data to enable us to be predicting what they're typing. So how does AWS help us to innovate? AWS helps us in many ways. Most people use Hadoop or EMR from Amazon to look at their web analytics, things like that. We use it for crunching languages. We suck in text, like we'll take in the whole content of Wikipedia, for example, and run that through a Hadoop cluster so that we can understand how language interacts. So when we go and add to our 50 or 60 existing languages, we can get a head start by just sucking in huge parts of text on the web to actually help us to be smarter. So we've produced languages in the past. We've worked on those without even having a native speaker to do the first iteration before we go out and then test it with the native speakers. And they've said, this is better than any other technology we've had before. Who did you use to do this? And we said, we didn't even have a person doing this. This was being sucked in and using our software to generate the language models. We're using AWS Redshift to query and report user stats. We had queries that ran for hours and hours and hours, and they changed to seconds. We had a couple of reports that took 2.5 days, and they went down to minutes. So it's just been transformational for us to be able to suck in our data, our user stats, and to report on those. And what it is as a startup, I didn't have to build a data warehouse. In previous organizations I've worked on, I've spent absolute millions on data warehouses. And as a startup, I don't want to spend absolute millions on building a data warehouse. I want to plug in something like AWS Redshift, get something that's quicker than what I've previously used and at a fraction of the price. That's the sort of transformation that AWS brings to us today. We distribute our language models to our users via CloudFront. We don't want to have to build a CDN. We don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of web servers to push out our language models to our customers. We want to be able to do that seamlessly, and CloudFront enables that. CloudFront is out there in all those points of presence all around the world, and that enables when a person on their phone says, okay, I'm a native English speaker, but I know Spanish as well, so I want to download Spanish. They open up SwiftKey, they download it, and bang, it's there on their device without us having to maintain a whole infrastructure there to do that. It just gets pushed out easily. And also, it gives us the ability to provide R&D with as much capacity as they want. We're a research-heavy company. We're around 30 to 40% of people have PhDs. We are sitting there trying new ideas out, trying things out, and we want to be able to do what we want, when we want, and we don't want to have 500 servers sitting there because we want to try out a cool new idea. And that's what Amazon's enabled us to do. Some of the software engineers, they'll just have an idea, they'll spin up some servers, crunch it for 2 or 3 hours, spin them back down. It might cost us $12, something like that. instead of having $1–2 million of service sitting idle most of the time. So that's us, and that's how we're doing. Come and have a chat to me afterwards. Find me on Twitter. There's my Twitter handle. Have a chat to me, and if you're interested, check out our website. We're always doing exciting and new things. Thanks.
Number 4 on the list, cost savings and flexibility. This is something that you've heard quite a few times from AWS, and it's something that's fundamental to the core experience for many of our users. The number one component of cost flexibility, of course, is the trade-off of capital expenditures for variable expenses. Even putting aside the accountancy value of doing that, the cash flow for many businesses that changes as a result of moving to AWS is a really significant motivator for the shift to the cloud. No longer do you have to spend millions and millions of dollars, pounds, euro, chunking down a large set of hardware that takes up space and maybe is not fully utilized. You can spend money only for what it is that you're actually using. I'm going to pause here for a moment. There are a number of people who are just coming in right now. If you'd like to find a seat, please contact a member of staff. They can help you find. There are some open seats, especially up here in the middle. Number 2 in that component is economies of scale. AWS has a corporate history of reducing prices largely in the absence of any competition. Why does this happen? 2 reasons. The first is as we get better at driving AWS, we get larger. When we get larger, we get better deals from the hardware and software providers that we use, and we become more efficient at using those services. So we drive our costs down, and unlike a lot of companies who are happy with 80%, 90% margins, we come from a lineage of a company that's quite happy with extremely slim retail margins. We say, we don't need that much money. Let's pass that savings on to our customers. Number 3, of course, is the flexibility of the pricing model. You have the ability to choose on-demand instances, which of course are, you pay for them when you're using them, you don't when you're not. But you also have the ability to say, I want to make sure that this server is available to me when I need it. Moreover, I want to pay you a small upfront fee in return for a much lower ongoing rate. We give you those options, and you can choose what's best for your organization. And of course, as you grow larger, we offer you bigger discounts. That's part of our tiered pricing model and something we've had for a long time. I talked about our pricing reduction philosophy. We announced our 42nd price reductions on April 1st, about half off on Amazon S3, for example. EC2, of course, reductions somewhere between 10 and 40% on various instant types. Our database service, EMR, of course, similar reductions in price as they're based on EC2. Additionally, we added support for more instance types like the M3s, the C3s, I2s, et cetera. Lowering prices is not something that's new for us. For our customers, it represents a fundamental change for many of them. And the Total Jobs group here contacted us and said, we want you guys to understand what this means to us from a financial standpoint. Not only did they avoid $800,000 in capital expenditure, but they reduced their yearly operating expenses by $500,000. That is a tremendous change in the cash flow in their business. And they're not alone. Dow Jones, by moving their data centers to AWS, $100 million in infrastructure savings. That's enormous in a business that's as intensive as theirs. National Rail Inquiries, of course, is reducing their costs by 20% and improving their ability to cope like they have been with days like today. With extreme peaks in demand, when they migrated their real-time journey planning to AWS. Let's hear from another one of our customers. In this case, I'd like to bring up Sanjivan Bala, the head of data planning and analytics from Channel 4.
morning, everybody. So by way of background, for those of you that aren't familiar with Channel 4, we're a free-to-air broadcaster. We actually don't receive any revenue from license fee that you all pay. We actually are self-sufficient in that all of the revenue we generate from advertising gets plowed back into our content propositions. The other aspect about our business that's different to, for example, ITV, is that we actually don't produce any of our own content either. We operate what's called a commissioning model, so we are continually innovating in the way in which we are working with independent production companies to generate a lot of our content that you see on air. So about 2.5, 3 years ago, David Abraham, our current CEO, came into post, and one of the things he declared as he came into post was that data would transform every aspect of our business and every aspect of the broadcast value chain. So that's going from production to broadcast to advertising. So as we started on that journey, we realized one thing was going to happen to our business. We were about to move from a one-to-many broadcast relationship with our viewers to a one-to-one relationship with our viewers. And that started off by us asking our viewers to register to access content. So we first started with getting registration up and running, getting our viewers across our digital touchpoints to register with us, give us some information about themselves. We then started to connect that registration information, so who they were, with everything they were doing with us across our digital footprint. So all of the behavioral information, all the web interaction, all of the video on demand interaction. That then allowed us to segment our viewers like we've never been able to before. So we now understand preferences, we understand viewer interests, we understand the sort of content that our viewers are like, the content they don't like. We understand how we might be able to navigate our viewers and introduce them to some new content they wouldn't ordinarily have explored or experienced. So from our registration information, we're able to now personalize and recommend content to our viewers in terms of shows that are coming up on our linear channels, as well as content that's going to be available on our video on demand services. Recommendations obviously plays a key role, and part of our remit as a broadcaster is that we're not just after recommending more and more of the same content that you might see. So if you start watching comedy, we're not just going to recommend more and more comedy. So we're looking to how do we dial up and dial down that serendipity factor. So how do we introduce you to new content? How do we sort of break through and cut through in terms of all the other content that's available and introduce you to something new? So recommendations plays a key part in some of our strategy. And finally, advertising, and that's where all of our revenue gets generated. So how do we serve more relevant, more targeted advertising? Because the more advertising we then can serve, and the more relevant advertising, the more revenue we generate, the more we can plow back in terms of our content proposition. So as I mentioned, we started off this journey about 2.5 years ago with 0 registered users. But in any given month, there's about 46, 47 million individuals in the UK that are watching some of our content on telly. So what do you think happens when we put out a message on air, either pre, during, or after a transmission, asking our viewers to go online and register? We get phenomenally huge peaks to our website. In fact, we now have 10 million registered users in over 22 months. And part of the challenge we had as we were doing that is we needed a platform and an infrastructure that could scale with us. So when we put something on air, when Gogglebox is airing, for example, or Made in Chelsea, or a play-along game for that we might have as a part of a multi-platform commission, we needed a platform and infrastructure that could scale seamlessly, allow registration to continue happening, and when that peak had finished, could then scale back down. And that's exactly why AWS for us was quite key in terms of how we handled that peak. So it's not just the size and the number of registered users that we've grown to in terms of over the last 2 years, but it's also all of the interactions that have happened when they're coming to our platforms, when they're enjoying a multi-platform commission, when they're calling into the call center, when they're tweeting about us, or when they're talking with us or interacting with us in any of those different platforms. And over that time period, we have captured over 60 billion interactions that our viewers have had with us across all of our different platforms and touch points, and that continues to grow. And as we started on this journey, one of the things we were considering, and our CTO often looked at, was what's the best platform choice for us? And I think within the team that I manage, the data sciences team, they needed flexibility. We weren't sure the sort of business problems we would be trying to tackle, the way in which we might extract value from data across all the different parts of our business. So for us, why would we go and buy infrastructure or build our own infrastructure because ultimately you can never specify enough CAN, enough disk, enough processor. So why restrict ourselves that way? And that's exactly why we went with AWS and EMR, the Elastic Map Reduce compute capability. For my data sciences team, that's been an absolute key enabler for us to deliver benefit. And one of the things we often talk about at the channel is time to value. So how quickly can we take an idea, a concept, a seed of an idea within data sciences and get it all the way through the business, get the change delivered in the business so we can see either commercial value or consumer value in terms of how our viewers are interacting with us as a brand. So a little bit around some of the benefits we've delivered so far using the platform. In terms of advertiser innovation, I talked about 10 million users. We've taken all of that behavioral information and we've built a set of predictive models. The platforms and the technologies we've used are all open source, as you see there, running on AWS and EMR. And what it's allowed us to do is to predict for every single one of our registered users as well as unregistered users, both age, gender, social-economic class, and other status. Whilst those segments sound relatively simple, the predictive model that we've ran was independently audited. It's upwards of 90+% predictive. But this one product is allowing us to generate incremental revenue in our business. And secondly, for brands and advertisers, is delivering a more efficient and a more effective ad product. So brands are able to then cut through and reach target audiences much more effectively. One of the benefits of our registered user base is that we have over 50% of all 16 to 34-year-olds in this country registered with us. And for advertisers, that's a very hard to reach audience that they're able to kind of now reach with this particular ad product. So I'll touch a little bit around advertiser innovation and the incremental revenue we've now delivered within that time frame. The second aspect, or another aspect that we often work through, is how do we innovate our marketing proposition? Because we run a commissioning model and we're constantly coming up with new commissions, new content, new shows, one of our challenges is how do we best promote some of this new content to our existing registered users? So Space, Gogglebox, Fargo, Made in Chelsea, how do we optimize who gets what promotion? How do we introduce someone that's never seen Made in Chelsea, for example, and get them into something like that? So we built what we call a fan model. So we understand what we call your fandom score. So what's your affinity as a user to our content? And what does that look like at a channel brand level? So Channel 4 versus E4, at a genre level, and at a program level. Again, the way we had to build this was using Elastic Map Reduce, so we had the ability to scale up and start up a number of clusters. So within data sciences, one of the key benefits for us has been the ability to scale up a single cluster or a 200-node cluster. And that flexibility for us has been absolutely key, because as a result of building these particular models, we now optimize the way in which we promote our own airtime and therefore our own content to our users. And we've done this on a targeted level. What we're finding is it's delivering 8 times more video-on-demand viewing than an untargeted approach. Incremental viewing for us means incremental revenue from advertising, which allows us to plow that incremental revenue back into our business model and continue to innovate in terms of our content proposition. So finally, in closing, we looked at traditional infrastructure, we looked at relational, we looked at sort of tin can and software and organizations that any of you here would recognize. And we started loading data into this infrastructure. We calculated it would take us 9 months to load the sort of volume of data, the unstructured nature of this data, into that platform. With AWS and EMR, it took us just 2 days to load exactly the same data in. What that meant for our business is it meant that I could give my analyst and my data sciences team access to the data quickly. It also meant that they could then take that data, build all these models, and we could deliver value and actual commercial benefit into our business within that 9-month time frame. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. So what are enterprises thinking when they think about the cloud and its use in 2014? There are a number of different ways that people can use and move into the cloud, and I'd like to step through a few of them to help illustrate for you the different ways that people use AWS. Number one, of course, and the one some of our speakers have brought up to you today, is development and testing. And dev test is not just bespoke applications, like you heard with Just Eat, but it's also very traditional kinds of operations like Lionsgate did with their SharePoint and SAP environments. And why developer test? You want to see how much you can reduce the cost of operations. You can do more work, you can do it more quickly, and do so more efficiently. Tokyo Stock Exchange, of course, reduced their dev and test costs by moving into AWS when looking at their Oracle environment. The number two is new workloads. New workloads represent circumstances where enterprises may not have had an opportunity to try out something. They may not have been able to work directly with a particular environment because of the cost before, because of the inflexibility of their on-premises infrastructure. General Electric created a new manufacturing collaboration application which allows GE engineers to collaborate on materials, models, simulations, and equipment, all of those things within an environment that met the governmental regulations that surround their particular industry. Expedia and Qantas, of course, developed their hotel booking engine. Vodafone in Italy with their SIM card credit platform. All of these were completely new apps that they did not have running before. Moving further along the spectrum of interaction between brand new things and traditional workloads, supplementing your existing work with the cloud is becoming increasingly popular. So for example, NASDAQ took their on-premises data acquisition and analysis model and said, this isn't big enough, it isn't fast enough, it can't do enough with the information that we have. So they exported the data to AWS for analytics processing in EMR. And then they took the results of that analysis process and moved it back to their on-premises analysis and display applications. This allowed them to reuse their existing infrastructure more efficiently, but gain quicker insight into what the market's doing. SunPower is a leading global solar technology and energy services provider. They use AWS to meet their compliance requirements for disaster recovery, enabling them to successfully expand into new markets that they hadn't been into before because of the cost of doing so in a compliant fashion. As a nice bonus, they ended up saving over $120,000 a year over their traditional hosting provider for DR purposes. Flip that the other direction. Supplement workloads that run on AWS with your on-premises applications. Samsung televisions have a Smart Hub app. It allows them to serve up content, data, information to users of their television systems. That runs on AWS because of the very peaky nature of the use of television systems, especially as people buy new television systems around either major sporting events or holiday seasons. Tremendous variability in workload. Samsung moved their Smart Hub application, actually developed it on AWS, but they wanted to integrate it with their existing on-premises payment platform. They had a significant investment into it, and they didn't want to get rid of it, but they were able to do so securely using Amazon Virtual Private Cloud and our Direct Connect options. And let's say that you've got an existing application that you use on premises and you want to move it entirely into the cloud. Several companies have taken that particular journey. Bristol-Myers Squibb used Amazon services to build a research cloud from scratch. Remember before we talked about innovation being key to the success of businesses? That's extremely important in the industries that BMS, Bristol-Myers Squibb, is a participant in. Their scientists' time is one of the most valuable things they have as an organization. So if they can use it more efficiently, they put themselves in a tremendous advantage position. Using AWS gives the scientists the ability to run thousands and thousands of clinical trial simulations so that they can optimize their designs and zero in on new treatments more rapidly. Additionally, this allows them to reduce the number of human subjects that are required for a study and reduce the study length and the frequency of data collection, and ultimately, cost. Some companies have decided that they want to completely divest themselves of either one or multiple data centers. News Corp decided that they wanted to move significant portions of the Wall Street Journal and dozens of mobile and tablet apps worldwide, along with their back office applications, from their on-premise static provision data centers into AWS. The net result is a 9 times increase in their usage of AWS over the past 12 months. But more importantly, they're going from 40 data centers that they have to support down to only 6. Our APIs made it straightforward for them to integrate directly with their legacy technologies on premises. And the SDKs that support those APIs allow them to use their existing environments without concern for what the original development language was. The last major theme in moving into AWS is, of course, the all-in strategy. And this is probably made most famous by Netflix through their CEO, Reed Hastings. They decided a long time ago that they wanted to be the best original content production house in the world. And they recognized that spending their time, their money, and their people's efforts on racking and stacking servers was not going to get them there. They needed to focus them on the user experience. And they decided to go all in with AWS as a result. We, in that process, gained a tremendously valuable customer who pushed us to develop new features and new services. And one of the benefits, of course, of AWS is that all of our customers benefit from those new features and services. So as people like Kempinski moves into the cloud in AWS, they demand new security features so that they can process all of the registration transactions for their hotel guests around the world. And those features are available to all of you as a result. Suncorp moved all of their infrastructure into AWS, so you've got a financial services and insurance business that's highly regulated that needs to operate in AWS. So they force us to focus very hard on the compliance aspects of our work, which benefits all of you. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about private clouds. Old guard hardware and software companies love to talk about how easy it is to build something that resembles AWS inside your data center. Of course, this usually involves buying more hardware and more software and most likely some consulting time from them as well. The problem here is the reality of the customer experience rarely matches up to what the billing is when they send you it through the mail originally. Forrester has told us 92%, that's an awful lot, of private clouds are still falling short of even the basic core requirements of self-service automation, tracking, and monitoring. If they're falling short in those areas, what about the really important functional aspects that sit above that? So what are customers really looking for when they talk about private clouds? Why is the discussion even relevant? Customers want to ensure that they can meet their business requirements for confidentiality. So whether it's private networking, the storage and compute platforms being appropriately scoped just to you, or key management, all of those, of course, are rolled up into the concept of governance, ensuring that you've got the control that you want over the location of your data, who has access to it, and who can use it. The good news is, of course, that you can do all of those things in AWS. We offer you the opportunity to use private networking. Our software-defined network called Amazon Virtual Private Cloud has been in production use since 2009. That allows you to cordon off a piece of our infrastructure, make it your own. You get to define the routing rules in it. You get to define the firewall rules in it. You get to define how it's connected back to your infrastructure or to your partners' infrastructures. Into that, of course, you place EC2 instances, our virtual machines. And you can control who has access to those machines and all of our other services using our IAM platform, our Identity and Access Management platform. You can drive IAM, of course, either off of identities you create uniquely for AWS, or you can link them directly back to your on-premises Active Directory infrastructure so you can reuse your corporate identities to do so. If you so choose, you can even have physical isolation for your virtual machines by using EC2's dedicated instances features. This allows you to ensure that you are the only customer who's running on that physical piece of hardware. With compute and networking, of course, you need storage. Within storage, we provide you ways to use S3 securely. You can encrypt objects that are within Amazon S3, either have us do the crypto for you with server-side encryption, or do the encryption yourself if you wish, using our SDKs. Amazon EBS, our block store, can be encrypted using a number of third-party software applications that are available from our partners who are here today if you'd like to discuss that more. And of course, no cryptography is useful or complete without key management. We offer you the ability to use and generate cryptographic keys using Amazon's Cloud HSM product. Governance overlies all of these different features and capabilities. As I said earlier, you get to control where your data is in the world. You can place it in a region that's appropriate for you, whether it's based on where your users are, or whether you have to meet specific regulatory requirements to keep data within the EU, for example. Very fine-grained access control is available. You can write policies that do things like say, for example, this S3 object is only accessible to Bob, and only when he's on his corporate desktop system, and it's between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Monday through Friday, and he's got a physical hardware authentication token in his hand. It's something that allows people to have incredibly careful access control for their data and to drive compliance requirements in some cases. Now, some people have asked me that example is kind of extreme, but for companies that are highly regulated, like financial services organizations, for example, that have a regulatory requirement to keep data for 7 years, they want to have only one person, the records retention officer, who's authorized to delete that information. So we have to give them the tools that help them meet their particular needs. Moreover, we have to be able to prove to customers that we are doing what we say we are doing. We're a global company. People around the globe speak different languages, and so do their businesses. So we have to support a variety of different certifications and accreditations that are relevant to our diverse customer base. That means supporting accreditations or certifications that tend to be horizontal in nature, like ISO 27001 or SSAE 16, or ones that are relevant to particular verticals, whether it's the payment card industry or federal governments. And many conversations with customers begin with the question about security. How does security work in the cloud? Some customers are confused. They come into that conversation thinking somehow this is going to be very different from what I'm already doing. And in reality, the security that we implement in AWS is very familiar to what many customers have been doing for the last 30 years. There are only so many ways that you can put locks and alarms, gates and guards on data centers. We work very hard to make sure we've got the right people and processes in place, that we have the right security controls around our physical buildings and our networks and systems. Now, again, this is a situation where our most demanding customers raise the bar for all of our customers. So when General Electric wants to run workloads in AWS that require very stringent controls over the export of data, for example, we have to build those features into our platform, which are then available to all of our customers. Our partner ecosystem gives us even more flexibility in the services that we can provide from a security standpoint, whether it's encryption or access control, identity management. And again, every single customer gets to take advantage of our features. When you look across all the regions that we have, there is no difference in the security operations from Europe to the US to Sydney to Tokyo. So for many companies, that really revolves down to this question. Which path is better for you? Do you want to spend millions developing something that looks like AWS in 2010? Or do you want to move to AWS and take advantage of our incredibly rapid innovation, incredible scale, geography, and breadth of services? Now, some customers get confused. They think they have a binary choice. You can either build this thing in your own prem, or they can rip everything out and move to AWS. And that's a false dichotomy. It's not an either-or situation. AWS is designed to interact with your on-premises applications right now. Whether that's integrated networking, so we appear as just another data center on your fabric with virtual private cloud, or whether it's integrating directly with your on-premises identity store, so your people won't have to change what they log into in order to use AWS. You can back up your on-premises applications and data directly to AWS if you choose, and you can manage AWS the same way that you manage your on-premises applications, often through the same pane of glass. So it's not a dramatic change in the way that you function. Some final thoughts about Amazon as a company, because this has a lot of influence in how we think and how we work and how we deliver services to you. Many companies talk about customer obsession, but for Amazon, this is our lives. If you look at our corporate values on the internet, you will notice that the number one theme amongst them is customer obsession. Andy Jassy said at reInvent that there is not a meeting that we have, a discussion about features or capability that we have within the company where the question is, how is this going to benefit the customer? Furthermore, we have a culture of innovation. We don't focus on being a fast follower. That works for some people, not for us. We want to be the leader in an industry. We want to deliver people capabilities that they don't have anywhere else. And we focus very hard on selecting the right people for our organization who can make that happen, who can drive new features faster than anybody else on the planet. But most importantly, we think about the long term. This is not an organization where you'll be pestered by a salesperson at the end of a quarter so that they can make their numbers. Nor will we slip in a change in a renewal contract to help us jack up margins to make numbers for the end of the year. Look at Amazon's theory of operations for its entire life. We are focused on long-term value to customers, not short-term benefits. And that whole set of thinking really is exemplified by one of our services. This is AWS Trusted Advisor. It's part of our premium support offering. It gives every customer tailored advice about their environment on AWS. We look at hundreds and hundreds of different aspects of the way you're using our services and offer you ways that you can improve your use. We'll look at, for instance, the firewall rules that you're using on your virtual machines and suggest that you adjust them to afford you the best security protection possible. Or when a major vulnerability in a software package comes out, warn you that you appear to be running this software package and you have that port open to the internet. Heads up. But more importantly for customers, we look at how you're using our services. Are you fully utilizing the EC2 instances that you've got running? Or are they sitting relatively idle? If they're sitting relatively idle, we will suggest that you shut them down to save yourself money. How many tech companies do you know that would proactively reach out to customers and ask them to spend less? It's resulted in more than $200 million in cost savings to customers. With that, I thank you very much. Please take advantage of the learning opportunities that are available today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Steve. We're about midway through the day, so we're going to get you out to lunch next door in a few moments. So I mentioned earlier that you have an opportunity to win a Kindle Fire HDX. So I've had one of these devices in the house for a while. I've got a 12-year-old and 8-year-old sons, and unfortunately I can never find the thing because they really love it. They are great devices. If you haven't got one, you should really look at them. So we've got 10 Kindles to give away today. They unfortunately are locked in these Perspex cases inside the exhibitor expo next door. So they are on key code. You might be able to see the key code device. It's a quick code that you need to get. And to get those codes, you're going to go on a partner trail. And you'll see some billboards in the partner expo on where you can go and get these codes. So go talk to some of the partners, grab a couple of codes, and then go and see the device. So there's the Perspex screen. And if you unlock that door, congratulations. You're just the proud owner of a new Kindle Fire HDX. So really exciting. We had quite a lot of whooping and shouting yesterday from a bunch of people winning Kindles yesterday. It was quite exciting next door. So hopefully, I wish you well and good luck in that competition. So hopefully you'll win one of those things. So if you're on Twitter, hashtag today is hash AWS Summit. So we're at AWS Cloud and also on the account AWS_UKI. We set up the AWS_UKI account a few months back, and it's a great Twitter feed to follow because there's a lot of events that we put on every month. In the opening video, you'll have seen Rob from Royal Opera House, and he mentions Cloud School. That's something we put on every month in central London. It's a day's hands-on training. It's for free. It's in the sort of central London area. Come down, you get some expertise and some intro and some chance to use some of the services and ask some of the solution architects that are on hand how to use the services as well. So please follow that Twitter feed. It's a good feed to keep up to date with communication from us. So one of the other things one of the teams actually asked me to remind you about is there's actually a AWS Summit app on app stores. So to help you this afternoon find tracks, rooms, descriptions of tracks and content, if you actually search for AWS Summit in the search bar on your favorite app store, you should find the app. You download it and help you guide to your location this afternoon in the building. It'll give you the tracks and the content descriptions, etc. So look at your favorite app store for that. The other thing I was asked yesterday as well, and I should point out, a lot of the materials today you'll be interested in, we will actually put them out. You'll receive an email giving instructions on how you can get to materials over the next few days as well. So without further ado, thank you very much for coming in today. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much for your attention this morning. And that's this morning's session's finished. We're going to finish in this room. Across the corridor is the Partner Expo. Lunch is now being set up and served, so if you want to grab coffee, tea, and some lunch, please go next door. And then this afternoon, our sessions will be on the 3rd floor in this building. So thank you very much.
Thank you.